Understanding this thing about humans is the key to stop letting others' opinion paralyze you from completing your main character arc. Basically, what this all boils down to is understanding human nature. Let's remember, we're Homo sapiens. What that means is that we've been around for a very long time, and the brain has been wired to evolve with us. So, our brain has some incredibly outdated programming. If we want to stop letting people's opinions stop us from living our life, we need to catch our brain on its tracks when its old programming pops up. So, to know when it does, we need to understand what the brain has been programmed for. We have this thing called the biological imperative, where the brain's main job is to keep us alive, to stop us from being dead, okay? And being social is absolutely crucial to our existence, to our survival. Humans are social beings. Our brains just wants to keep us alive, right? Okay, so remember those two things. It is so hard for us to not care about what other people think, because the brain thinks when we do something that might make people not like us, it means we might die. We have been living for so long in that kind of society where we just could not be without other people. We need other people to survive. And it's only very recently was when we started building civilization as we know it now. The brain has been wired so that we care about what other people think. And so now that you have a little bit of an understanding about the nature of your brain, the nature of you being a fucking human, now it's time to practice awareness. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we live in modern times because our brains, it doesn't know that we don't necessarily live in that kind of circumstances anymore. The amygdala, it can only be like, yes, this is dangerous. No, this is not dangerous. Okay, it doesn't actually know the difference between a tiger, something that is completely dangerous and you might die if there's a tiger like literally in front of you, and it doesn't know when you were creating a YouTube channel, okay? So sometimes it's just automatic and these emotions rise up because we need these emotions, right? Again, it's because they all served as a function of survival. Like back then, we really need that like, oh shit, like that adrenaline rush, that fear, so that we can bolt when there's a tiger, okay? When we feel those emotions of fear, of doubt, of anxiety, when we wanted to do this thing that your auntie might be like gossiping to your cousins about, and you're gonna have like a bad name and they're gonna like tell your parents about it, you know, that kind of shit that you're scared about. Sometimes it's important for us to remind ourselves that first of all, we are adults now. You know, if you have a wounded inner child, that can be like really difficult, right? To remind your inner child that we got this now, okay? Like we don't actually need our parents anymore in order for us to survive. Remind your brain, remind your inner child that you can survive rejection. Sometimes the brain likes to come up with all these different reasons, right, that could go wrong. Because some of us have fucking developed anxiety, and that's what anxiety is. This is why cultivating self-trust and building your self-worth is so important, because when you know and understand who you are, when you understand that you are worthy, when you understand that you don't need to be achieving all these things to be considered good enough, to be considered like worthy of love, because again, that's just what it boils down to, right? When you understand these things and you genuinely believe them, or at least I think, at least just be aware of them, especially if you're starting out. When you've cultivated that trust with yourself, then you know that you are going to be able to survive rejection. You know that you are going to be able to survive all the uncomfortable feelings that come with doing this thing that you really want to do in your life, and understanding that, you know, there's always going to be pros and there's going to be cons. There's always going to be struggle. There's always going to be that trek up the mountain that is going to maybe take your breath away. And that is just part of the process, right? And when you've cultivated that self-trust, when you know how to navigate uncomfortable feelings, because that's really why we don't want to do these things, right? Is that, oh, I don't want to write that book because I don't want to face like that really harsh inner critic that likes to bully me, right? And that's really uncomfortable. Or when you try to sculpt and it comes out shit, and then you have all these thoughts surfacing about like you not being a good artist, you not being a creative person, and just feeling really discouraged, like all these things, right? We don't want to do a lot of things because we think that we can't cope with the uncomfortable emotions, and maybe we don't, right? And that's okay, because a lot of us aren't actually taught how to face uncomfortable emotions. A lot of us were taught like dysfunctional ways to cope with uncomfortable emotions, right? You know, maybe you saw that your parents like to drink the night away when they have to go to like a social function, right? Because they have social anxiety. Like that anxiety is normal, that fear is normal. We all learn these like really unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? So really forgive yourself for not knowing how to not care about other people's opinions, really, because that is just how we are wired. And we didn't learn all these things, all these tools. We don't have the tools. When we have learned this thing called behavioral sovereignty, you learn that it really doesn't matter whatever emotions pop up. It doesn't matter what thoughts pop up. You know that you are the one in charge. You know how to handle uncomfortable emotions. You've had all this proof in your life that when you say that you are going to do something, you can do it. You can at least control the things that you can control, so that you at least try. You can lead yourself to wherever it is that you value in your life when you have behavioral sovereignty. Basically, you learn that even though you have these fears coming up, you are fucking shivering. It doesn't mean that you need to stop. It doesn't mean that you need to stop posting on TikTok and letting yourself express all the goodness that you have in that really creative noggin of yours. I actually made quite an interesting video about making decisions and actually choosing the decision that scares you the most. I will link it up here. I talk about how actually our desires lie behind fear. So, I'll see you there. Peace.